The sound of expensive heels clicking against marble floors echoed through the lobby of Johnson and Associates law firm. Mary Johnson looked up from her case files as her secretary's voice came through the intercom, shaky and uncertain. "Mrs. Johnson, there's a young woman here who says she needs to speak with you about your husband." Mary frowned. In 15 years of marriage, no one had ever come to her office asking about Robert. She was known for keeping her personal and professional life separate. "Send her in." The door swung open, and in walked a woman Mary had never seen before. She was young, maybe late 20s, with long straightened hair and a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But it was her attitude that filled the room, pure arrogance mixed with something that made Mary's stomach turn. "So you're the famous Mary Johnson," the woman said, not bothering to sit down. She held up a set of car keys, letting them dangle and catch the light. "I'm Christabel, and I think it's time we met." Mary kept her face neutral, the way she did in court when opposing counsel tried to rattle her. "I'm sorry, but I don't think we've been introduced. How can I help you?" Christabel laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "Oh, we don't need introductions. I know exactly who you are. You're Robert's wife. The one he complains about being so boring and focused on work all the time." The words hit Mary like a slap, but she didn't flinch. Years of practicing law had taught her to never show weakness, even when her world was cracking apart. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "Not yet," Christabel said, walking closer to Mary's desk. "I came here for a reason. You see these keys?" She shook them again, the sound sharp and mocking. "They're to my brand new Mercedes. Silver, leather interior, all the bells and whistles. Robert bought it for me last week." Mary felt her heart stop beating for a moment. Robert bought a Mercedes? They had talked about their budget just last month. He said they couldn't afford a new car for either of them. "I don't believe you," Mary said quietly. Christabel's smile grew wider, meaner. "Oh, you want proof?" She pulled out a folder from her designer purse and threw it on Mary's desk. "Here's the registration, the purchase agreement, everything. Robert signed for it, paid for it, and gave it to me because he loves me." Mary's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the papers. She was a lawyer, reading documents was second nature. But as her eyes scanned the registration, the ground seemed to shift beneath her feet. The car was registered to Johnson and Associates law firm. Her law firm. Her business. "This car," Mary said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, "is registered to my company." Christabel's confident expression faltered for just a moment. "What do you mean, your company?" Mary looked up, and for the first time since Christabel walked in, she felt something other than shock. She felt anger, cold and sharp and focused. "This car belongs to my law firm. The registration says so right here." She held up the paper. "Which means my husband used my business to buy you a car." "That's impossible," Christabel said, but her voice had lost its mocking tone. "Robert bought it for me. He said he had the money." "Where did you think a salesman got $70,000 for a Mercedes?" Mary asked, standing up from her chair. She was tall, and now she used every inch of her height. "Did you think he just had that lying around?" Christabel's face went pale. "He said he had savings. He said he was successful." Mary walked around her desk, the papers still in her hand. "He is successful. At stealing from his wife's business." She looked at the registration again, seeing details she had missed in her first shock. "This purchase was made using my business credit line. That means you're driving a car that I paid for." "No," Christabel said, backing toward the door. "He wouldn't do that. He loves me." "Does he?" Mary asked. "Because a man who loves you wouldn't forge business documents to buy you gifts. And that's what he did, forged my signature on the credit application." Mary walked to her office window and looked down at the parking lot. There it was, a silver Mercedes, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her car. Bought with her money. Given to her husband's mistress. "I want you to listen to me very carefully," Mary said, turning back to face Christabel. "That car down there belongs to me. The registration proves it. And you're going to give me those keys right now." "I won't," Christabel said, clutching the keys to her chest. "Robert gave it to me. Robert doesn't own it." "I do." Mary pressed the button on her desk phone. "Security? I need you to come to my office immediately. We have someone here who has stolen property belonging to the firm." Christabel's eyes went wide. "You can't do this." "I can and I will," Mary said. "You came to my office to humiliate me. To show off something you thought proved you had won. But all you've done is show me that my husband is a thief and you're an accomplice." The security guard knocked on the door. "Mrs. Johnson? You called?" "Yes, Mike." This woman has keys to a vehicle that was purchased using fraudulent documents and my business credit. I need you to escort her to the parking lot where she will return the vehicle to me." Christabel looked around the room like a trapped animal. "This isn't over," she said. "You're right," Mary said, her voice deadly calm. "It's not over. Because now I'm going to find out exactly how much money my husband has stolen from me. And then I'm going to make sure both of you pay for every penny." As Mike escorted Christabel from the office, Mary sat back down at her desk. Her hands were steady now, her mind clear. She had work to do. Mary sat alone in her office, the car keys heavy in her palm. Through her window, she could see Christabel standing next to the Mercedes, tears streaming down her face as she talked frantically on her phone. Probably calling Robert. The registration papers were spread across Mary's desk like evidence in a court case. Because that's what they were now, evidence. Evidence of betrayal, of theft, of a marriage built on lies. Her intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Johnson? Your 4 o'clock appointment is here." Mary looked at her watch. Somehow an hour had passed since Christabel's visit. "Cancel my appointments for the rest of the day, please. Tell them something urgent came up." "Of course, Mrs. Johnson. Is everything all right?" Mary almost laughed at the question. Nothing would ever be all right again. "I'm fine. Just need to take care of some personal business." She opened her laptop and logged into the business banking system. Her law firm was successful. They had multiple accounts, credit lines, and investment portfolios. All of it managed carefully, all of it protected by layers of security that should have prevented what she was starting to suspect. But Robert had access to her home office. He knew her passwords, her social security number, her mother's maiden name. All the information needed to forge her signature and apply for credit in her name. The business credit account showed a balance she didn't recognize. $73,000 charged in the past 6 months. The Mercedes was just the largest single purchase. There were hotel bills, jewelry store charges, restaurant receipts for places she had never been. Mary's phone rang. Robert's name flashed on the screen. She let it ring. It rang again. Then again. Finally she answered. "Hello, Robert." "Mary, thank God. Listen, there's been some kind of mistake. Christabel called me crying about the car and security guards. She's confused about something." "The only confusion," Mary said slowly, "is how you thought you'd get away with stealing from me." Silence on the other end of the line. "Robert? Are you there?" "I can explain," he said finally. "Can you? Can you explain how my business credit was used to buy a car for your girlfriend? Can you explain these hotel bills, these jewelry charges, this apartment rental agreement I'm looking at right now?" Mary had pulled up more records while they talked. Christabel's apartment lease, co-signed by Robert using false financial information from Mary's business. "How long?" Mary asked. "How long what? How long have you been stealing from me to pay for your affair?" Another long silence. Then Robert's voice, smaller now, defeated. "It started small. Just dinner here and there. I was going to pay it back." "When? When were you going to pay back $73,000 on a salesman's salary?" "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Mary felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart that would hurt. This was colder, like ice cracking. "How long have you been sleeping with her?" "Mary, please. Answer me." 2 years. 2 years. Mary closed her eyes and tried to think of signs she might have missed. Late nights at work. Business trips that seemed longer than necessary. The way he had stopped touching her, stopped talking to her about anything real. "Did you ever love me?" she asked. "Of course I did. I do." "No," Mary said. "You don't steal from people you love. You don't humiliate them. You don't send your mistress to their office to mock them. I didn't send Christabel anywhere. She did that on her own." Mary almost believed him. The Christabel she had met seemed exactly the type to make grand gestures without thinking them through. But it didn't matter now. "I want you out of the house," Mary said. "Mary, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can't work out theft, Robert. We can't work out 2 years of lies. We can't work out you using my business to fund your affair. Where am I supposed to go?" Mary looked at the apartment lease agreement on her screen. "I'm sure Christabel has room. Oh wait, I'm canceling the lease payments. She'll be evicted by the end of the month." "You can't do that. I can do whatever I want with my money." Mary's voice was ice cold now. "And Robert? If you're not out of my house by tonight, I'm calling the police and reporting the theft. All of it." She hung up before he could respond. Mary sat in her office as the sun set outside her window. Her marriage was over. Her husband was a thief. Her business had been violated. But somewhere underneath the pain and betrayal, she felt something else. Relief. For 2 years she had felt Robert pulling away. She had blamed herself, thought she was too focused on work, too boring, too demanding. She had made excuses for his distance, his coldness, his constant criticism. Now she knew it wasn't her fault. He had been living a double life and she had been the victim, not the problem. Mary opened a new document on her computer and began typing. She had a divorce to file, criminal charges to consider, and a business to protect. She was a lawyer and she knew exactly what she needed to do. Christabel had come to her office thinking she was showing off her victory. Instead, she had handed Mary the evidence needed to destroy both her and Robert. Mary smiled for the first time in hours. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Mary arrived at her office at 6 in the morning, 3 hours before her staff usually came in. She had spent the night in a hotel, refusing to go home until she was sure Robert had removed his belongings. Her assistant had confirmed by text that he had indeed packed and left, taking only his personal items. The silence in the empty law firm was exactly what she needed. No interruptions, no questions, just her and the evidence she needed to build her case. She spread everything across the conference room table like a puzzle that needed solving. Bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, jewelry purchase records, restaurant charges, and dozens of other documents that painted a picture of betrayal and theft. Mary had built her reputation on being thorough. Criminal defense, civil litigation, business law, she approached every case the same way. Gather the facts, organize the evidence, build an unshakable argument. Now she was building a case against her own husband. The apartment lease was the most interesting document. Christabel's luxury apartment cost $4,000 a month, far more than a receptionist could afford. But Robert had co-signed using false financial statements that claimed he earned $200,000 annually. His real salary was $60,000. Mary photographed every document, creating a digital file that would be impossible to dispute in court. She had learned early in her career that documentation was everything. Without proof, accusations were just words. Her computer chimed with an email. From Robert. Mary, I know you're angry, but please don't do anything hasty. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Don't throw away 15 years of marriage over a few bad decisions. I'll pay everything back. I promise. A few bad decisions. Mary looked at the evidence spread across the table. $73,000 in theft. 2 years of lies. A systematic betrayal of their marriage and her business. He called that a few bad decisions. She deleted the email without responding. The jewelry store receipts were particularly painful to review. A diamond necklace purchased on Valentine's Day, the same day Robert had told Mary he was too busy for dinner. Pearl earrings bought for Christabel's birthday while Mary received nothing for hers. A watch that cost more than Mary's monthly mortgage payment. Every purchase was a memory of Robert coming home late, distracted, distant. Now she knew where his attention had been focused. Mary's business partner, Patricia Williams, arrived at 7:30 and found her in the conference room. I got your text, Patricia said, closing the door behind her. What's this emergency about? Mary had worked with Patricia for 8 years. They had built Johnson and Associates together, two women determined to prove themselves in a field dominated by men. Patricia was the only person Mary trusted completely. Robert has been embezzling from the firm, Mary said simply. Patricia sat down heavily in one of the conference room chairs. How much? $73,000 so far. Maybe more. Mary handed her the business credit statements. He's been forging my signature to access our credit lines. Using the money to fund an affair. Patricia reviewed the documents, her expression growing darker with each page. This is fraud. Criminal fraud. I know. Mary, I'm so sorry. How did you find out? Mary told her about Christabel's visit, about the car registration, about the apartment lease and all the other evidence she had uncovered. Patricia listened without interrupting, her lawyer's mind already working through the implications. What do you want to do? Patricia asked when Mary finished. Everything. Divorce, criminal charges, civil litigation to recover the money. I want them both to understand that actions have consequences. Patricia nodded. I'll support you completely. But Mary, are you sure? Criminal charges against Robert will be public. Your personal life will be in the newspapers. Mary had thought about that during her sleepless night. As a successful attorney, she had always guarded her privacy carefully. But silence protected Robert and Christabel, not her. Let them print it, she said. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't steal anything. I didn't lie to anyone. I didn't betray anyone. What about the business? Some clients might be concerned about the security of their files. Mary had considered that too. Our security protocols prevented Robert from accessing client information. He only had access to financial accounts because I trusted him. That trust was misplaced, but it doesn't affect our ability to represent clients. Patricia stood up and walked to the window looking out at the city below. I've been practicing law for 15 years and I've never seen a case this personal. Are you sure you can handle this emotionally? I'm angry, Mary said. But anger can be useful. It focuses the mind, makes you determined. I've represented abuse victims, fraud victims, people whose trust was violated by those closest to them. Now I understand what they felt. And you're sure there's no chance of reconciliation? Robert seemed genuinely sorry when I met him at the Christmas party. Mary laughed, but there was no humor in it. He's sorry he got caught. If Christabel hadn't been so arrogant, so determined to humiliate me, I might never have discovered any of this. He could have kept stealing from me for years. She gathered the documents into neat piles. I'm going to visit the bank this morning to close his access to all accounts. Then I'm filing for divorce. Then I'm calling the prosecutor's office. Patricia returned to her seat. I'll handle the bank accounts. You focus on the legal filings. And Mary? I'm proud of you. A lot of people would try to hide this, pretend it didn't happen. You're facing it head on. I'm too old to pretend my life is something it's not, Mary said. 15 years of marriage and I never really knew him. I won't waste any more time living a lie. As Patricia left to handle the banking issues, Mary began drafting the divorce papers. She had handled hundreds of divorces, but none felt as clear-cut as this one. No custody issues to complicate things, no debate about asset division. Robert had forfeited any claim to joint property when he chose to steal from her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I don't know what you think you're proving, but Robert loves me. He left you for me. Deal with it. Christabel. Still fighting a war she had already lost. Mary texted back. Robert left me for $73,000 of my money. Without that, he never would have been able to afford you. She blocked the number and returned to her work. By noon she would have filed for divorce. By evening, Robert and Christabel would discover that their fairy tale romance had a very expensive price tag. Mary spent her lunch break in the prosecutor's office, sitting across from District Attorney James Foster. She had faced him in court dozens of times over the years, sometimes as adversaries, sometimes as colleagues working toward justice. Today she was a victim seeking help. This is substantial, James said, reviewing the evidence Mary had provided. 73,000 in documented fraud, forged signatures, false financial statements. We could pursue multiple felony charges. What are my options? Mary asked. We could charge him with embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and making false statements to financial institutions. If convicted, he's looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. Mary felt a chill at the words. Despite everything Robert had done, the thought of him in prison was difficult to process. But she pushed the feeling aside. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. What about Christabel Williams? She benefited from the stolen money. That's trickier, James admitted. If she knew the money was stolen, she could be charged as an accomplice. But if she genuinely believed Robert had the right to spend that money, she might not be criminally liable. She knew, Mary said. When she came to my office, she was surprised that the car was registered to my business. But she wasn't surprised that Robert had spent so much money on her. She knew he didn't earn enough for those kinds of gifts. James made notes on his legal pad. I'll need to interview her. And Robert. But Mary, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Once we file criminal charges, there's no going back. Your marriage will be very publicly over. My marriage was over 2 years ago, Mary said. I just didn't know it yet. After leaving the prosecutor's office, Mary drove to her bank. Patricia had already frozen Robert's access to all business accounts, but Mary needed to handle their personal finances as well. Mrs. Johnson, the bank manager said as she settled into his office. I was so sorry to hear about your situation. We've already implemented the changes your partner requested for the business accounts. Thank you. Now I need to address our personal accounts. Joint checking, savings, investments. I want Robert's name removed from everything. The manager reviewed his computer screen. I can freeze the accounts immediately to prevent any further unauthorized withdrawals. But removing him completely will require either his signature or a court order. I'll have a court order by tomorrow, Mary said. She left the bank feeling more in control than she had since Christabel's visit. Every step she took closed another door on Robert's ability to continue stealing from her. Her phone rang as she reached her car. Patricia. I just got an interesting call, Patricia said. Robert's employer. Apparently, Robert listed our firm as a reference when he applied for his current job 3 years ago. They want to verify his employment history. Mary frowned. Robert never worked for us. Exactly. It looks like he's been lying about his work history too. His resume claims he was a consultant for Johnson & Associates for 2 years before taking his current sales position. Another lie, another deception. Mary wondered how many other false statements Robert had made over the years. What did you tell them? The truth. That he never worked here and we have no record of him being associated with our firm in any professional capacity. Mary could imagine Robert's employer's reaction to that news. A salesman whose resume contained outright lies wouldn't keep his job long in any reputable company. Good, she said. Let the truth come out everywhere. That evening, Mary sat in her home office, the same office where Robert had accessed her passwords and forged her signature. She was drafting a comprehensive legal strategy, approaching her own case with the same attention to detail she gave her clients. The divorce would be straightforward. Virginia was an equitable distribution state, meaning marital assets would be divided fairly. But Robert's theft had forfeited his claim to any joint property. He would leave the marriage with exactly what he brought to it, nothing. The criminal case would be more complex. She needed to prove intent, demonstrate a pattern of deception, and show that Robert knew his actions were illegal. The evidence was strong, but prosecutors preferred cases that were slam dunks. The civil litigation would allow her to recover the stolen money plus damages. Even if Robert went to prison, he would still owe her every penny he had stolen, plus interest and legal fees. Mary's doorbell rang at 8 o'clock. Through the security camera, she saw a woman she didn't recognize standing on her porch. Young, nervous, holding an envelope. She opened the door but left the security chain in place. Can I help you? Are you Mary Johnson? The woman asked. Yes. I was hired to deliver this to you personally. She held up the envelope. I need to see your ID and have you sign for it. Legal papers. Someone was serving her with legal documents. Mary's mind raced through the possibilities as she signed for the envelope. Inside was a letter from a law firm she had never heard of, representing Christabel Williams. The letter demanded that Mary return the Mercedes immediately, claiming that Christabel was the legal owner regardless of the registration documents. Mary almost laughed out loud. Christabel had hired a lawyer, probably with money. She didn't have to try to get back a car that clearly belonged to Mary's business. She called the law firm immediately. This is Mary Johnson, she told the receptionist. I received a demand letter from your office today regarding a vehicle registration dispute. I'd like to speak with the attorney who drafted it. A few minutes later, a young man's voice came on the line. This is Attorney Mitchell Green. I represent Ms. Williams in this matter. Mr. Green, I'm an attorney myself, and I have to say, this demand letter shows a fundamental misunderstanding of property law. The vehicle in question is registered to my business. The registration documents are clear and unambiguous. Ms. Williams claims the vehicle was a gift from her boyfriend, who purchased it legally. Her boyfriend is my husband, Mary said. And he purchased it using forged documents and stolen money. I've already filed criminal charges against him for embezzlement and fraud. Silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Green? Are you there? I wasn't aware of any criminal charges. Check with the prosecutor's office tomorrow. Case number 2024 County Route 1847. Your client is involved in a felony theft case. I'd strongly advise her to return any and all property she received from Robert Johnson before she's charged as an accomplice. Mary hung up, feeling satisfied. Christabel was learning that actions had consequences. And apparently she had found the cheapest lawyer in town to represent her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, Mary felt something she hadn't experienced in months: peace. She was finally fighting back. Mary's alarm went off at 5 in the morning, but she was already awake. She had been lying in bed for an hour, going over her strategy for the day. The criminal charges had been filed yesterday evening. By now, Robert would have been contacted by the police and advised of the charges against him. Her phone had 17 missed calls from Robert's number and 12 text messages, each more desperate than the last. She deleted them all without reading past the first few words. At 7:30, Mary was in her office when Patricia arrived with coffee and news. I just got off the phone with our insurance company, Patricia said. They're launching their own investigation into the fraudulent charges. If they determine that Robert committed insurance fraud by using false information to access our business credit, they'll pursue their own criminal charges. How much additional exposure does that create for him? Mary asked. Insurance fraud is a separate felony. He could be looking at additional prison time, plus restitution to the insurance company. Mary nodded. She felt no satisfaction in Robert's mounting legal troubles, but she felt no sympathy either. He had made his choices. There's more, Patricia continued. I got a call from Christabel's employer yesterday evening. Apparently, she missed work to deal with the car situation, and when she finally showed up, she was crying and distracted. Her supervisor wanted to know if there was anything they should be concerned about. What did you tell them? The truth. That she was involved in a situation where stolen property needed to be recovered. I didn't mention the criminal investigation, but I also didn't lie. Mary's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. This is Christabel. We need to talk. I didn't know the money was stolen. Robert lied to me too. Mary showed the message to Patricia, who raised an eyebrow. Interesting. She's trying to distance herself from Robert. Too late for that, Mary said. She made her choice when she came to my office to humiliate me. At 9 o'clock, Mary had a meeting with her divorce attorney, Sarah Chin, a colleague she had known for years who specialized in complex divorce cases involving business assets. This is one of the cleaner divorces I've seen, Sarah said, reviewing Mary's documentation. No children, clear evidence of marital misconduct, documented theft of marital assets. Virginia courts don't look favorably on spouses who steal from each other. How long will the process take? With this level of documentation and Robert's criminal charges, I'd estimate 4 to 6 months for a final decree. He could contest it, but given the evidence, no competent attorney would advise him to fight. What about spousal support? Sarah laughed. Mary, you earn 5 times what he does and he stole from you. There's no scenario where you'd owe him support. In fact, given his criminal conduct, he's forfeited any claim to support from you. Mary felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had been financially supporting Robert for years without realizing it. Her income paid their mortgage, their car payments, their lifestyle. His salary had been supplemental money he apparently felt free to spend on his affair. One thing to consider, Sarah continued. Robert might try to claim that some of the money he spent was for legitimate marital purposes. Hotel rooms, dinners, entertainment. He could argue that you benefited from some of the expenditures. I have receipts showing exactly where the money went, Mary said. Hotels in cities I've never visited, restaurants I've never been to, jewelry I've never seen. None of it benefited me. After the meeting with Sarah, Mary returned to her office to find a surprise visitor waiting in the lobby. Robert sat in one of the leather chairs, looking smaller and older than she remembered. He stood when he saw her. Mary, please. Just 5 minutes. You need to leave, Mary said. I have nothing to say to you. I know you're hurt and you have every right to be. But the police called this morning. Criminal charges? Prison time? This is going too far. Mary really looked at him for the first time in months. When had he become a stranger? When had she stopped seeing him clearly? What did you think would happen, Robert? Did you think I would just accept that you stole from me? That I would pretend not to notice $73,000 missing from my business? I was going to pay it back. When? You don't earn enough in 2 years to pay back what you stole in 6 months. And that's assuming you stopped spending money on Christabel completely. Robert's shoulders sagged. I made mistakes. You committed crimes, Mary corrected. Multiple felonies. And you involved my business, my reputation, my livelihood in your affair. I love you, he said quietly. Mary felt nothing when he said the words. No pain, no anger, no sadness. Just emptiness where her feelings for him used to be. No, you don't, she said. People who love each other don't steal from each other. They don't lie for years. They don't humiliate each other. What about Christabel? She's lost her apartment, her car, probably her job. She doesn't deserve this. Mary stared at him in disbelief. Are you seriously asking me to feel sorry for your mistress? The woman who came to my office to mock me? She was trying to make you jealous. She thought if you knew about us, you'd fight for me. She was trying to hurt me, Mary said. And you let her. You gave her the weapons to hurt me. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, can't we work this out privately? Without the police, without courts? I'll sign the divorce papers, give up any claim to the house or your business. Just drop the criminal charges. Mary felt something cold settle in her chest. Even now, facing prison time, Robert was trying to negotiate. Trying to minimize the consequences of his actions. No, she said simply. Mary. No. She turned toward the elevator. You had 2 years to work things out privately. You chose to steal from me instead. Now you face the consequences. As the elevator doors closed between them, Mary saw Robert sitting back down in the lobby chair, his head in his hands. She felt no pity for him. He had made his choices and now she was making hers. Back in her office, Mary called the prosecutor's office to confirm that Robert had been formally notified of the charges. Then she called her insurance company to check on their investigation. Finally, she called her accountant to begin documenting the full financial impact of Robert's theft. Every call, every document, every legal filing was another step away from the woman who had trusted blindly and toward the woman who would never be a victim again. By the end of the day, Robert's access to everything Mary had built was completely severed. He could no longer hurt her financially, professionally, or personally. For the first time in 2 years, Mary felt truly safe. 3 weeks after filing criminal charges, Mary sat in her office reviewing the prosecutor's case file. The investigation had expanded far beyond her initial complaint. Robert's employer had fired him after discovering the lies on his resume, and they were cooperating fully with the criminal investigation. "It gets worse," James Foster, the prosecutor, told her during their meeting. "We found evidence that Robert used your business information to open credit cards in the company name. Cards you never knew existed." Mary felt a familiar chill. How much? Another $30,000 in charges. Hotels, restaurants, shopping sprees. The credit card companies are treating it as identity theft since your signature was forged on the applications. The amount kept growing. What had started as $73,000 in documented theft was now over $100,000. Mary wondered how much more they would discover. "There's something else," James continued. "Christabel Williams' apartment lease. Robert didn't just co-sign it using false information. He forged bank statements showing that your business was guaranteeing the lease payments." "What does that mean legally?" "It means if she can't pay her rent, the landlord can come after your business for the money. Robert essentially used your company to guarantee his mistress's living expenses." Mary closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The violation felt endless, each new discovery showing how thoroughly Robert had betrayed not just their marriage but everything she had worked to build. "Can we void the lease?" "We're working on it. The landlord is cooperative since they don't want to be involved in a criminal case. But it will take time." After the meeting, Mary drove to her house now, since Robert had been officially served with divorce papers and an order to vacate. She needed to collect some documents from her home office and check on the property. She was surprised to find Christabel's car in her driveway. Mary parked behind the small sedan, blocking it in, and walked to her front door. She could hear voices inside Robert and Christabel arguing loudly. "You said she would never find out," Christabel was saying. "You said the money was yours to spend." "I thought I could replace it before she noticed," Robert replied. "The business was doing well. I thought I had time." "Time for what? To steal more?" Mary put her key in the lock and opened the door. Both Robert and Christabel turned toward her, their faces showing guilt and fear. "What are you doing in my house?" Mary asked calmly. "I still live here," Robert said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No, you don't. You were served with papers ordering you to vacate the premises. This is criminal trespass." Mary pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," Christabel said. "Please. We just need to talk to you. We have nothing to discuss." "Yes, we do." Christabel stepped forward, and Mary could see she had been crying. "I lost my job yesterday. And my apartment. Robert can't pay the lease because he doesn't have any money." Mary looked at Robert, who wouldn't meet her eyes. "So now you understand what I've been trying to tell you. He never had money. Everything he gave you was stolen from me." "I know that now," Christabel said. "And I'm sorry. I never should have come to your office. I was wrong." "Yes, you were. But I didn't know the money was stolen. I thought Robert was successful, that he earned enough to take care of me. I was naive, but I wasn't a criminal." Mary studied Christabel's face. The arrogance from their first meeting was gone, replaced by desperation and fear. "What do you want from me?" "I want to make this right. I'll testify against Robert if it helps your case. I'll return anything he gave me that I still have. I just want this to be over." Robert turned on Christabel, his face angry. "You're going to testify against me? After everything I did for you?" "Everything you did for me was with stolen money," Christabel shot back. "I'm not going to prison because you lied to me." Mary watched their relationship crumble in real time. Without money to bind them together, they had nothing left but accusations and blame. "Robert," Mary said quietly, "you need to leave my house now or I'm calling the police." "This is my home too," he said. "No, it's not. I bought this house with my money before we were married. Your name isn't on the deed. You have no legal right to be here." Robert looked around the living room like he was seeing it for the first time. The furniture Mary had chosen, the artwork she had bought, the life she had built that he had never really been part of. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked. "That's not my problem anymore," Mary said. Robert gathered a bag of clothes and left without another word. Christabel started to follow him, then stopped. "Mrs. Johnson," she said. "I really am sorry. About everything." Mary looked at the young woman who had destroyed her marriage. But looking at her now, Mary realized Christabel hadn't destroyed anything. She had simply revealed what was already broken. "I believe you're sorry," Mary said. "But being sorry doesn't undo the damage." "I know. But maybe I can help make it right. I kept records of everything Robert gave me, every dinner, every gift, every trip. I can help you prove how much he stole." Mary considered the offer. From a legal standpoint, Christabel's testimony would be valuable. A co-conspirator turning state's evidence could make the difference between a conviction and an acquittal. "Call the prosecutor's office," Mary said finally. "Tell them you want to cooperate with the investigation." After Christabel left, Mary sat alone in her house for the first time in weeks. The silence was profound, no longer the tense quiet of a marriage in trouble, but the peaceful stillness of a home where she felt safe. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Insurance company finished their investigation. They're pressing separate charges against Robert for fraud. Also, his former employer wants to meet with you tomorrow. Apparently, they have information that might help your case. Mary smiled as she read the message. Robert's house of cards was collapsing completely, and she hadn't even finished building her case yet. Every lie he had told, every document he had forged, every person he had deceived was coming to light. Justice, Mary thought, was a beautiful thing to watch unfold. The local newspaper ran the story on a Thursday morning. Prominent attorney's husband charged with embezzlement. Mary found out when her assistant brought her the paper with her morning coffee. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson," her assistant said. "I thought you should see it before clients started calling." Mary read the article carefully. It was factual, if incomplete. Her name, Robert's name, the charges against him, the estimated amount of theft. The reporter had done their research. They even mentioned that Robert's former employer had fired him for falsifying his resume. "Any calls yet?" Mary asked. 3 from reporters, 2 from potential clients who said they were impressed by how you handled the situation, and 1 from your mother." Mary's mother. She had been dreading that conversation. "Get my mother on the line, please." Mary Catherine Johnson. Her mother's voice was sharp with concern. "Why did I have to read about your divorce in the newspaper? I was going to call you this weekend, Mama. I wanted to wait until the legal issues were more settled." "Legal issues?" "Honey, the paper says Robert stole over $100,000 from you. How long has this been going on?" Mary explained the situation as gently as she could, leaving out the most humiliating details about Christabel's visit to her office. But her mother was smart. She read between the lines. "There was another woman, wasn't there?" "Yes, Mama." A long sigh on the other end of the line. "I never liked him, you know. Too smooth, too charming. Men who work that hard to make you like them usually have something to hide." Mary had heard variations of this opinion from her mother over the years, but always dismissed them as maternal overprotectiveness. Now she wondered what her mother had seen that she had missed. "Are you okay, baby? Financially, I mean." "I'm fine, Mama. The business is strong and I'll recover the stolen money through the court case." "What about emotionally? 15 years of marriage and he was lying to you the whole time." Mary thought about the question. How did she feel? Angry, certainly. Betrayed, obviously. But underneath those emotions was something unexpected: relief. "I'm angry," she told her mother. "But I'm also free. I didn't realize how unhappy I had become until the unhappiness stopped." "Good girl," her mother said. "You've always been strong. Don't let this break you down." After talking to her mother, Mary turned her attention to the day's legal work. The prosecutor had scheduled Robert's arraignment for the following week, and Mary needed to review her testimony one more time. Her intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Johnson? There's a woman here to see you. She says it's about your husband's case." "Another woman?" Mary's heart sank. Was there a second mistress she didn't know about? "Send her in." The woman who entered Mary's office was older, maybe 50, well-dressed but nervous. She introduced herself as Nancy Roberts. "I work at First National Bank," Nancy said. "In the loan department. I think I may have information relevant to your case against Robert Johnson." Mary invited her to sit down. What kind of information? Mr. Johnson came to our bank 6 months ago, trying to get a business loan. He claimed he was a partner in your law firm and needed capital for expansion. Mary felt her blood pressure rise. He's never been a partner in my firm. I know that now. But he had very convincing documentation. Business cards with his name, financial statements showing his ownership percentage, even what looked like partnership agreements. You didn't approve the loan, I hope? No, thank God. Something felt wrong about his presentation. He was too eager, too pushy. So I called your office to verify his partnership status. Your assistant told me Robert Johnson had no affiliation with your firm. Mary made notes as Nancy talked. Another attempted fraud, another lie that could have devastated her business if it had succeeded. Why are you coming forward now? Mary asked. I saw the newspaper article this morning and realized I needed to tell someone about this. If he had succeeded in getting that loan, your firm might have been held liable for repayment. Mary thanked Nancy and promised to pass the information to the prosecutor. As Nancy left, Mary's phone rang. The caller ID showed her divorce attorney's number. Sarah? Please tell me you have good news. I do actually. Robert's attorney called this morning. He wants to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? Complete capitulation. Robert will sign over all claims to marital property, waive any spousal support, and agree to an expedited divorce in exchange for you not pursuing additional civil litigation beyond the criminal case. Mary considered the offer. What's the advantage to me? Time and certainty. You'd have your divorce finalized in 6 weeks instead of 6 months, and you wouldn't have to worry about Robert trying to claim joint ownership of assets he helped you acquire. What about the money he stole? The criminal case will address restitution. You'll get your money back either way. Mary made her decision quickly. Accept the offer. I want him out of my life as completely as possible. I'll call his attorney this afternoon. As Mary hung up the phone, she realized that Robert's willingness to negotiate meant he was finally understanding the seriousness of his situation. His criminal attorney had probably explained that the evidence against him was overwhelming, and that his best hope was to minimize the damage through cooperation. That afternoon, Mary received a call from Christabel. Mrs. Johnson? I wanted you to know that I met with the prosecutor yesterday. I gave them everything: bank statements, receipts, text messages, everything I could think of. How did it go? They offered me immunity from prosecution in exchange for my testimony against Robert. I accepted. Mary felt a mix of satisfaction and disappointment. Part of her wanted Christabel to face consequences for her role in the affair. But from a legal standpoint, her testimony would be crucial to securing Robert's conviction. There's something else, Christabel continued. The prosecutor asked me about other women. Apparently, they think Robert might have been involved with someone else before me. Mary's stomach dropped. Someone else. They found hotel receipts and restaurant charges that don't match up with my timeline. Someone else was getting gifts and trips before Robert and I started dating. A third woman. Or maybe a fourth or fifth. Mary realized she might never know the full scope of Robert's deception. But she also realized it didn't matter. Whether there was one affair or 10, the marriage was over. Whether he stole $73,000 or twice that amount, he was going to prison. Whether he had lied about one thing or everything, she was done believing anything he said. Mary Johnson was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, and she was winning. The courthouse was busier than usual on the morning of Robert's sentencing hearing. Word had spread through the legal community about the case, and several of Mary's colleagues had come to show support. The spectacle of a prominent attorney's husband being sentenced for embezzlement had drawn media attention as well. Mary sat in the front row, dressed in a sharp black suit that projected strength and professionalism. Behind her, she could hear whispered conversations about the case, about her, about what Robert's sentence might be. Robert entered the courtroom in handcuffs, wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. He had been in custody for 2 weeks since pleading guilty to all charges. His attorney had advised him that cooperation was his only hope for a reduced sentence. The judge, the Honorable Patricia Williams, no relation to Mary's business partner, called the court to order. She was known for being fair but firm, and she didn't tolerate financial crimes kindly. Mr. Johnson, Judge Williams said, you have pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and making false statements to financial institutions. Before I pass sentence, is there anything you would like to say? Robert stood, his legs visibly shaking. Your Honor, I want to apologize to my wife, to her business, and to everyone I hurt with my actions. I have no excuse for what I did. I made terrible decisions and I understand that I have to face the consequences. His voice was barely audible, and Mary felt nothing as she listened to his prepared statement. The man who had once commanded rooms with his charm and confidence was broken, and she found she had no sympathy left for him. Mr. Johnson, the judge continued, the evidence in this case shows a pattern of deception spanning over 2 years. You systematically stole from your wife's business, forged her signature multiple times, and used her identity to commit fraud. The total amount of theft exceeds $120,000. $120,000. The number had grown again as investigators uncovered more fraudulent transactions. The court also notes that your crimes were not motivated by necessity. You were not stealing to feed your family or pay for medical bills. You were stealing to fund an extramarital affair and maintain a lifestyle you could not afford through legitimate means. The prosecutor stood to address the court. Your Honor, the state recommends a sentence of 7 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. Mr. Johnson's crimes were serious, ongoing, and showed a complete disregard for the law and for his victims. Robert's attorney argued for a reduced sentence, citing his client's cooperation and lack of prior criminal history. But Mary could see from the judge's expression that the arguments were falling on deaf ears. Mr. Johnson, Judge Williams said finally, I sentence you to 6 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You will also pay full restitution to your victims, including interest and court costs, totaling $137,000. The gavel came down with finality. Robert's shoulders sagged as the bailiff approached to escort him back to his cell. As they passed Mary's row, Robert looked at her one last time. Mary met his gaze steadily, her expression neutral. She felt no triumph in his downfall, but she felt no regret either. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters approached Mary for a statement. She kept her comments brief and professional. I'm satisfied with today's outcome, she said. The court has held Mr. Johnson accountable for his crimes, and that's what the justice system is designed to do. I'm looking forward to moving on with my life. That afternoon, Mary returned to her office to find a package waiting for her. No return address, but she recognized Christabel's handwriting on the label. Inside was a jewelry box containing several pieces Mary had never seen before: a diamond necklace, pearl earrings, a gold bracelet. There was also a handwritten note. Mrs. Johnson, these are all the pieces Robert gave me that I still have. I sold some others to pay for my lawyer, but I wanted you to have these back. They belong to you since you paid for them. I'm sorry for everything. Christabel. Mary examined the jewelry. Conservative estimates put the value at $15,000, money that could have paid for a family vacation, home improvements, or simply remained in her business accounts where it belonged. She put the jewelry in her office safe. Later, she would have it appraised and add the value to Robert's restitution debt. But for now, she was simply glad to have it back. Her business partner Patricia knocked on her door. How do you feel? She asked. Mary considered the question. Closure, I think. It's over. Robert is in prison, I have my business secure, and I can finally move forward. Any regrets? About pressing charges? No. About the marriage ending? No. About 15 years with someone I never really knew. Mary paused. Maybe. But I can't change the past. I can only control what happens next. That evening, Mary drove to her mother's house for dinner. It was the first time in months that she felt genuinely relaxed, genuinely hopeful about the future. You look better, her mother said as they sat down to eat. Stronger. I feel stronger, Mary replied. I learned that I can survive anything, even when the person I trusted most betrays me completely. What's next for you? Mary smiled. Whatever I want. For the first time in years, my life is completely my own. I can make decisions based on what I want, not on what someone else needs or expects. As she drove home that night, Mary thought about the woman who had sat in her office just 3 months ago, listening to Christabel mock her boring life. That woman had been living a lie, married to a stranger, funding his affair with her own money. The woman driving home tonight was different. She was wiser, stronger, and completely free. She had faced the worst betrayal imaginable and emerged victorious. Robert was in prison. Christabel was working multiple minimum wage jobs to survive. And Mary Johnson was planning her future as a woman who would never again trust blindly or love unwisely. She had won more than a court case. She had won her life back. 6 months after Robert's sentencing, Mary's life had settled into a rhythm she never expected to enjoy so much. Her law practice was thriving. The publicity from the case had actually brought her new clients who admired her strength and legal skills. She had purchased a new car, redecorated her house, and taken her first vacation in 5 years. But the most unexpected change was how content she felt being alone. For 15 years she had defined herself partly as Robert's wife. Now she was simply Mary Johnson, attorney, business owner, and free woman. She was reviewing contracts in her office on a Thursday afternoon when her assistant announced a visitor. "Dr. Michael Thompson is here for your 3 o'clock appointment," her assistant said through the intercom. Mary looked at her calendar, confused. She didn't have any appointments scheduled. "I think there's been a mistake. I don't have anything on my calendar." "He says it's about the Jefferson Medical Center case." Mary remembered now. Jefferson Medical Center was being sued for malpractice, and they had hired her firm to represent them. Dr. Thompson must be one of the physicians involved in the case. "Send him in." The man who entered her office was not what she expected. Tall, with graying hair and kind eyes, he moved with the quiet confidence she associated with surgeons. But there was something gentle about him that put her at ease immediately. "Dr. Thompson, I'm sorry for the confusion about our appointment. I don't have you on my calendar." "Actually," he said with a slight smile, "I lied to your assistant. I don't have an appointment. I'm here about something else entirely." Mary raised an eyebrow. "Oh. I read about your case in the newspaper. Your husband's embezzlement trial. And I wanted to tell you how much I admired the way you handled yourself throughout the process." Mary was taken aback. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Do we know each other?" "Not exactly. But I was going through a similar situation at the same time. My wife of 20 years left me for her personal trainer. She took half of everything we had built together, including money she had stolen from our joint accounts to pay for plastic surgery and gifts for her boyfriend." Mary studied his face, seeing pain that she recognized. "I'm sorry. That must have been devastating." "It was. But reading about your case, seeing how you fought back, how you refused to be a victim, it inspired me to take control of my own situation instead of wallowing in self-pity." They talked for an hour. Michael Thompson was a cardiologist, recently divorced, father of 2 grown children who lived in other states. He was funny without being pushy, intelligent without being arrogant, and honest about his own mistakes and vulnerabilities. When he left, Mary found herself thinking about him for the rest of the day. It had been months since she had thought about any man in a personal context. She had assumed that part of her life was over, that Robert's betrayal had left her too damaged to trust anyone again. But Dr. Thompson Michael had stirred something in her that she thought was dead. He called her office the next day. "Mary, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner sometime. Somewhere public, somewhere safe, just 2 people who understand what it's like to start over." Mary surprised herself by saying yes. Their first date was at a quiet restaurant downtown. They talked about their careers, their divorces, their hopes for the future. Michael was nothing like Robert. He listened when she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and never once tried to impress her with exaggerated stories about his success. "Can I ask you something?" Michael said over dessert. "Do you ever worry that you'll never be able to trust anyone again?" Mary considered the question. "Every day. Robert lied to me for 2 years and I never suspected anything. How do I trust my own judgment anymore? I think about that too. My ex-wife was stealing money for months before I noticed. I keep wondering what other signs I missed, what other lies I believed." "But you're here," Mary pointed out. "You're willing to take the risk of getting to know someone new. So are you." They dated slowly, carefully. Michael understood Mary's need to maintain her independence, her reluctance to merge finances or make big commitments. He had his own walls to navigate, his own fears to overcome. But gradually, over months of dinners and conversations and quiet evenings together, Mary found herself healing in ways she hadn't expected. Michael never tried to fix her or save her. He simply appreciated who she was and supported her goals. "I've been thinking," he said one evening as they walked through downtown after dinner, "about what my ex-wife's trainer said to me when I confronted him." "What did he say?" "He said I should thank him for taking her off my hands because I was too boring for someone like her." Michael paused at a streetlight. At the time it hurt. But now I realize he was right. About being boring? About being wrong for her. I am boring, compared to a 25-year-old fitness instructor with 6-pack abs and no responsibilities. But that doesn't make me worthless. It just makes me wrong for someone who wanted that kind of excitement. Mary squeezed his hand. "Robert used to call me boring too. He said I was too focused on work, too serious, too old-fashioned. I spent years trying to be more fun, more spontaneous, more whatever he wanted me to be. And now I realize that I like being serious about my work. I like being old-fashioned about things like honesty and commitment. I like being focused on building something meaningful instead of just chasing the next thrill. So do I, Michael said. Which is probably why we work well together. They had been dating for 4 months when Mary felt ready to introduce Michael to her mother. She was nervous about the meeting. Her mother had been suspicious of Robert from the beginning, and Mary wasn't sure she was ready to have her judgment evaluated again. But her mother liked Michael immediately. He looks at you the way a man should look at a woman he cares about, her mother said after dinner when Michael was helping with the dishes. Like he's grateful to be with you, not like he's doing you a favor. It's still early, Mama. We're taking things slow. Good. You should. But Mary, don't let what Robert did stop you from being happy. Not every man is a liar and a thief. That night, as Michael drove Mary home, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: genuine happiness. Not the forced cheerfulness she had maintained during her marriage, but real contentment with her life and excitement about the future. What are you thinking about? Michael asked, noticing her smile. How different this feels from anything I've experienced before, Mary said. With Robert, I was always trying to be enough, to do enough, to make him happy. With you, I just am who I am. Who you are is pretty amazing, he said simply. As they pulled into her driveway, Mary realized that she was no longer afraid of love. She was still cautious, still protective of her independence, but she was no longer closed off to the possibility of partnership with someone who respected and valued her. Robert had taken 15 years of her life, but he hadn't taken her capacity for joy. Michael was proof of that. 1 year after Robert's sentencing, Mary stood in her office looking out at the city skyline. Johnson and Associates had expanded to a larger building, hired 3 new attorneys, and was handling more cases than ever before. The publicity from her own case had brought in clients who specifically wanted to work with a lawyer who understood financial betrayal and wasn't afraid to fight for justice. Her personal life had transformed as well. Michael had proposed 3 months earlier, not with grand gestures or expensive rings, but with a quiet conversation about building a future together based on mutual respect and shared values. They were planning a small wedding for the following spring. Mary's intercom buzzed. Mrs. Johnson? There's a woman here to see you. She says her name is Angela Foster, and she has a legal matter involving embezzlement. Another betrayed wife, Mary thought. Her practice had attracted dozens of them over the past year, women whose husbands or business partners had stolen from them, women who needed a lawyer who understood their situation personally. Send her in. Angela Foster was young, maybe 35, and visibly shaking as she sat down across from Mary's desk. She had the hollow-eyed look of someone who had recently discovered that their life was built on lies. My husband has been stealing from our business, Angela said without preamble. I just found out yesterday. He's taken almost $200,000 over the past 3 years. Mary felt a familiar anger on behalf of this stranger. How did you discover it? His girlfriend came to our house. She was angry because he hadn't paid her rent this month, and she thought I was hiding money from him. Angela's voice broke. I didn't even know he had a girlfriend. Mary handed Angela a box of tissues and thought about herself a year ago, sitting in this same office, learning that her husband was a thief and a liar. But Angela would be luckier than Mary had been. She would have an experienced advocate from the beginning. Angela, I want you to know that you're going to get through this. It feels impossible right now, but you will not only survive, you will come out stronger. How can you be so sure? Mary smiled. Because I've been exactly where you are right now, and I can show you how to fight back. They spent 2 hours going over Angela's situation, developing a strategy for protecting her assets and building a criminal case against her husband. As Angela left the office with a clear plan and a competent attorney, Mary felt the deep satisfaction that came from turning her own painful experience into a way to help others. That evening, Mary and Michael had dinner at the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. As they talked about their day, their work, their plans for the weekend, Mary reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. I got a letter from Robert today, she said as they shared dessert. Michael raised an eyebrow. From prison? Yes. He's up for parole review next year, and he wanted me to know that he's been attending counseling and working to understand why he made the choices he did. How do you feel about that? Mary considered the question. Indifferent mostly. I hope he gets the help he needs, but it doesn't change anything for me. The damage is done and I've moved on. Do you think you'll respond to the letter? No. There's nothing left to say between us. As they walked to Michael's car, Mary's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and started laughing. What's so funny? Michael asked. It's from Patricia. She just saw Christabel at the grocery store. Apparently, she's working as a cashier and living with 2 roommates in a tiny apartment across town. Do you feel bad for her? Mary thought about it. No. She made her choices just like Robert did. She chose to get involved with a married man, chose to accept expensive gifts without asking where the money came from, chose to come to my office to humiliate me. Now she's dealing with the consequences. And you? I'm dealing with the consequences too. But my consequences are a thriving business, a beautiful relationship, and the knowledge that I'm strong enough to handle whatever life throws at me. 2 weeks later, Mary was in court representing Angela Foster in her husband's criminal trial. As she presented evidence of systematic theft and financial abuse, she thought about how many women she had helped over the past year. Each case was different, but the pattern was the same: men who thought they could steal from their wives without consequences, women who discovered their strength when pushed to their limits. During a break in the proceedings, Mary checked her phone and found a text from an unknown number. This is Christabel. I saw you on the news representing that woman whose husband stole from her. I wanted you to know that I think what you're doing is important. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. Mary read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. She had no interest in rekindling any kind of relationship with Christabel, even a cordial one. That chapter of her life was closed. That evening, Mary arrived home to find Michael cooking dinner and her mother visiting. The 3 of them had developed an easy relationship over the months, and Mary enjoyed the feeling of family that surrounded her now. How did court go today? Her mother asked. We won. Angela's husband pled guilty to all charges and agreed to full restitution. He'll serve 3 years in prison. Good, her mother said firmly. Actions have consequences. After dinner, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Michael took Mary's hand. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. Not just for what you've accomplished professionally, but for how you've transformed your own trauma into a way to help other people. Mary squeezed his hand. A year ago I thought my life was over. I thought Robert's betrayal had broken something in me that could never be fixed. What do you think now? Now I think Robert's betrayal revealed something in me that I never knew was there. Strength, independence, the ability to fight for what's right. He thought he was destroying me, but he actually set me free. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, Mary reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the devastating discovery of Robert's theft to building a new life based on her own values and choices, she had transformed herself from a victim into a victor. Robert was in prison, facing the consequences of his crimes. Christabel was working minimum wage jobs, learning that actions have prices. And Mary Johnson was living her best life, stronger and happier than she had ever been. She had won more than a court case or a divorce settlement. She had won herself back. The sun set completely and Mary smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new clients to help, new opportunities to grow. But tonight she was exactly where she belonged, free, loved, and victorious.